Godzilla vs. Kong is fucking awesome. Well, it's finally over. The Monsterverse has concluded with an amazing climactic battle that's sure to be in people's minds whenever another giant kaiju film with a massive budget gets released in the US. I really felt obligated to make a video on Godzilla vs. Kong because if you saw my video back in January, I displayed my overall frustration surrounding the many delays that made me question if this film would release this year at all. What? Are you kidding me? Oh my god, wow, okay, I mean, this is cool, I guess.
Oh, my wizard boy has been shafted once again.
Go.
Fucking son of a bitch!
And thankfully it did, and sooner than expected as well. I wanted to get my thoughts out as quickly as possible to match the overall hype and trendiness of this film, if you will, so a lot of this is unscripted. A bit different for me, I know, but honestly, there's another video that I'm working on right now that is definitely taking up more of my time and needs more of my attention at the moment. So, after watching this film 3 times on HBO Max, how do I feel about it? Well, if the intro is any indication, Godzilla vs. Kong is fucking awesome. But mostly. For one, the monster fighting is some of the best choreographed CGI monster fights I've seen in any film. Like, seriously, Godzilla and Kong go at it, and it's just as brutal as you think. I got chills so many times throughout the film from these fights, and there's a lot of them, like pretty much 3 rounds between the 2 titans to be exact. The movie is treated very much like a big boxing or UFC match that gets hyped up, which is great because the first Godzilla vs. Kong in 1964 did the same exact thing. Director Adam Wingard satirized the idea of how drawn to the screens everyone is when 2 titanic fighters go toe-to-toe, which is a direct reference to Ishiro Honda's film in 1964 where he did much the same. Godzilla and Kong trade blows many times and land lethal hits that knock the wind out of each other. It was really a dirty fight at times, especially when you see Kong grab Godzilla's mouth, trying to reenact the famous T-Rex scenes from his movies. And then, only for Godzilla to be like, no, that doesn't work on me. And then he shoots his breath out, basically singeing Kong's fingers. Kong fights like a WWE superstar, like for real, he's jumping off buildings and delivering multiple punches and kicks, but Godzilla just keeps on coming. He shoots the shit out of his breath and manages to disarm Kong, who was wielding his axe made from a Godzilla species dorsal plate. But Kong he never lets up either, and he tries restraining Godzilla many times before the Big G just gets pissed. Godzilla gets on all 4s and drags Kong around like a rag doll, dislocating his shoulder and ripping up his chest with his claws. Like, it was insane. He got so primal and aggressive, like, it's so good, man. And they finally made sure that the monsters were completely visible the whole time and not obscured by, like, a stupid night filter or rain and smog like the other Monsterverse films. They also knew that people wanted to see them fight and not have it cut to the dumbass humans every 2 seconds to see how some character gets stuck under some rubble or debris or whatever. Speaking of human characters, now that I'm on the topic, I will say that the Monsterverse still has a ways to go with this aspect of their films if they continue. The humans in the story are perfectly serviceable and entertaining enough, but still not at the quality that they should be. And listen, I'm not saying it's an easy task to create satisfying human drama under crazy monster fighting, because it's not. But some characters here are really bare bones and detract from the primary plot and monster action in the movie. And I know everyone knows where I'm going with this. The plot B characters, or Millie Bobby Brown and her team, were completely unneeded and detracted from the points of interest in this story. Which is a shame, because I thought Millie Bobby Brown's character, Madison Russell, was one of the best parts of King of the Monsters, as her acting was on point, and her goals and sheer bravery made her the best character of that film. Certainly better than the other Russells, who weren't bad, but just not as gripping and sensible. Especially Emma Russell, whose plans and motivations fell short of believability to me. I don't know. It was dumb, despite her redeeming herself in the end. But anyway, yeah, Madison and her entourage of conspiracy theorists just became a little annoying to watch as they accomplished very little and delivered numerous one-liners and goofy performances that were, like, I would say more so cringeworthy than funny, at least to me. Although that is the exact opposite for Plot A's team or Kong's team, who were absolutely more interesting and important for the overall story. Kaylee Hoddle's character, Gia, was definitely the best character in the film, as she was responsible for, like, bridging the gap between human and Titan. The whole sign language aspect between her and Kong was so endearing and was such a great idea that I haven't really seen in any other monster movie. And I was glad to see Kong going for a more paternal, adoptive father characterization over the played out and primitive pining for an attractive blonde woman trope that we've seen time and time again. It just gives more depth to his character, which is another huge plus for the movie. Both Godzilla and Kong are not only great monsters, but excellent characters. Like, they have so much emotion in their faces and reactions to things throughout the film, the likes that audiences have never really seen before. Kong, no surprise to anyone, steals the show. Make no mistake, Godzilla vs. Kong is Kong's movie. Throughout the film, we're always following him and his human team as they try to discover the secrets of the Hollow Earth, which is essentially another world located deep within the crust of our world, and it's said that the Titan species have all originated from this place. This Hollow Earth has been teased since Kong Skull Island and played a part in King of the Monsters as well, when they were tracking and then reviving Godzilla. Although it's hard not to notice just how rushed this story beat is for the whole monsterverse, really. First off, there are moments during this trek to the Hollow Earth where audiences will definitely get lost and start wondering, what's happening, what the point of all this is, and why Kong and Godzilla aren't fighting more. And really this is because the whole of the monsterverse, with its 3-film run up to this point, never really fleshed out the idea of a world under our world in any other capacity, making it all the less impactful when they finally reach the damn place. It's the same issue a lot of these big cinematic universe movies have, where higher-ups and execs of big film companies simply want the movies out as fast as possible, leaving very little room for the filmmakers to flesh out their stories in a cohesive and comprehensive manner. This is the same issue that surrounded the DCEU and even the latter half of the MCU at some points. But everything said and done, the film did basically all it needed to do, which was to make a story at the very least that was digestible while also prioritizing the monster action. And even when Godzilla and Kong weren't smashing meat against each other, we were still being entertained by Kong as he traversed through the Hollow Earth. I love the part when Kong grabs a rock structure in the shape of a finger, which made me think of the classic portrait of Adam connecting his finger with God, which is also done with Gia and Kong when they're on the boat, so that's a definite theme there. I guess like the theme of communication or bridging the gap, or maybe it's a reference to how man or humanity created monsters, like how Godzilla was originally created by the atomic bombs. But I don't know, maybe I'm overanalyzing and grasping at straws, so I'm just gonna move on. Kong's team was spearheaded by Apex Cybernetics, a big business tech company that wants to harness this source of unlimited clean energy found in the Hollow Earth, and in exchange, Gia and her adoptive mother, Eileen Andrews, I believe her name was, and Dr. Nathan Lind, who dedicated his life to discovering the Hollow Earth, will be able to study it and perhaps give Kong a home away from, tyrannical forces like human occupation and Godzilla on the surface. And tyrannical force he is, let me tell you. Godzilla plays an antagonistic role in this movie, which I am incredibly happy about. He's going ballistic because Apex was building Mechagodzilla, and the eye found in their lab was emitting a signal that the Big G didn't like, so it's very akin to the Orca signals from King of the Monsters. Of course, Kong's caught in the crossfire and nearly gets drowned in the first fight. But the real fight and the best part of the movie takes place in Hong Kong. It's at night, but everything's very strobed out and stylized in a way to always illuminate the monsters. Not to mention that Godzilla emits luminous radiation from his body almost constantly. The fight is bloody and brutal, but Godzilla emerges victorious despite the fact that Kong had the axe found in his ancestral throne room in the Hollow Earth. And anyone who knows me knows that I shit my pants in pure monstrous giddiness at this point. For anyone unaware, I'm a huge Godzilla fan, and I've always been, at the very least, irritated at the ending of the original King Kong vs. Godzilla, when it's heavily implied that Kong had won. Basically, at the end of that movie, they both fell into the water, and Kong's the only one who emerges from the depths and swims away, while Godzilla's nowhere to be found. However, you still hear Godzilla's roar at the end, implying that he's still alive, and the monsters went their separate ways. This stalemate/not stalemate created fan debate for years, and thankfully it was finally laid to rest in this film. Now listen, I'm not here to rattle off why Godzilla should win, because at the end of the day, we're talking about a stupidly fictional world where two unrealistic behemoths collide with the same amount of complexity as an overhyped pay-per-view special. But in the context of the original and of this film, Kong was intentionally the underdog and, the more well-liked monster. In both films, Godzilla was the antagonizing bully that a lot of the audience wanted to see bested by our lovable ape monster. But the reality is Kong is outclassed in sheer durability and weaponry, usually requiring tools or outside intervention to combat the King of the Monsters, and so I believe Adam Wingard made a sound decision in letting Godzilla win the battle, but letting Kong win the war, if you will. Yes, as we all know, Mechagodzilla gets unleashed and Kong and Godzilla team up to defeat him, with Kong delivering the final blow, redeeming himself over the loss over Godzilla. After being fully powered by the Hollow Earth's energy source, Mecha G goes rogue after the King Ghidorah supercomputer gains consciousness and sentience. Ren Serizawa, Ishiro Serizawa's son, initially piloted Mechagodzilla, like, Pacific Rim style, but he got fried. And yeah, that was another character with great potential just getting disposed of, unfortunately. Once again, his motives are not really explained, but it's assumed that he joined Apex Cybernetics to get revenge on Godzilla for the death of his father, which is something I don't really understand because, Ishiro Serizawa had an immense love for Godzilla and essentially saved the world by reviving the Big G. What is cool about this version of Mechagodzilla, though, is it takes direct inspiration from Kiryu, or Mechagodzilla 3 in the Millennium series of Toho's Godzilla films. Kiryu was a mecha built around the skeleton of the original 1954 Godzilla, and similarly goes on like a berserk rampage after a genetic memory is triggered in its neural interface, making you remember that it was Godzilla from way back when. Here in this film, Ghidorah's telepathic psychic abilities link both of its heads, the one that Serizawa pilots and the one that's found in Mechagodzilla's head, essentially making this monster Ghidorah 2.0, or a spiritual successor to Mecha King Ghidorah from the Heisei Godzilla series in the 90s. And in typical Mechagodzilla fashion, he boasts a lot of power and artillery that messes up Godzilla big time, until Kong is resuscitated from the electric shocks of Apex's Hollow Earth vehicle. This is a reference to the original movie where Kong is awakened and powered up by electricity, which is something that may have confused viewers of that film. But to give some backstory, King Kong vs. Godzilla was originally going to be an American-made sequel of sorts to 1933's King Kong called King Kong vs. Prometheus, which is a creature created by Dr. Frankenstein. So you could see where the electricity came in. But then the script and idea was outsourced to Toho pretty much, where they replaced Prometheus with Godzilla, got rid of the stop motion in exchange for suitmation, and rewrote Kong to sort of be a wielder of electricity. It's strange, I know, but it was cool to see this sort of movie monster meddling being referenced here. There are actually loads of references in Godzilla vs. Kong 2021, like the fact that Godzilla once again required the aid of a king to stop Mechagodzilla, first King Caesar in 1974 and now King Kong in 2021. Mechagodzilla's design and weaponry reminds me a lot of 1974's Mechagodzilla, as well as mixed with a little bit of Kiryu from the 2000s with his fast jet propulsion. The blast fight between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla was very reminiscent of the blast fighting mechanic from those awesome Pipeworks Godzilla fighting games in the early 2000s. Mechagodzilla nearly delivers the Kiss of Death move to Godzilla, which was the move that the Big G used to end the female Muto in one of the most badass moments in all of this cinematic universe. The ending shows Godzilla swimming off the same way Kong did in 1964 as the monsters go their separate ways once again. But I gotta say, my absolute favorite callback is earlier in the film when Kong shoves his axe's handle down Godzilla's throat, which is like pretty much a modern rendition of the eat your vegetables moment from the original. That was, I was jumping in my seat when I saw that. Like, there's so many of these great character moments, like when Godzilla maniacally laughs after successfully landing a hit on Kong with his breath, linking back to the silly fanfare he gave himself in the original, or when Kong shows how badass he is by fixing his shoulder, or the part where Godzilla flexes his power by shooting his breath downward toward the hollow earth, which made me immediately think of the time in Final Wars when he shot his breath into space and destroyed the meteor containing Monster X. Like, dude, it was so good. But minus the crazy amounts of passion and understanding of what made these films great to begin with, I could definitely acknowledge that, the film is far from perfect. This movie has what I like to call Batman vs. Superman syndrome, where it tries to do too much all in one film. And while it's nowhere near as egregious as Batman vs. Superman, Godzilla vs. Kong suffers a bit from this same issue. From this versus film, we expected Kong and Godzilla to fight, and thank God they did. For quite a while, actually. But then the underlying plot thread for this once-thought versus film begins to come to the surface, revealing that Mechagodzilla is the villain, and our heroes now have a common enemy. So, they fight, and even though this team-up provides great action and spectacle, I can't help but think to myself that Mechagodzilla and the story beats surrounding this character should have been fully fleshed out in another film, like a sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong. Instead, we get an overall film that is pretty satisfying, but its parts are so much greater than its whole. Each part, the Hollow Earth segment, the Apex Cybernetics developments, the fight between Kong and Godzilla, and the big fight with Mecha G at the end, are all great in their own ways, but don't really all come together in a cohesive narrative manner. Not fully, anyway. It's for this reason that I can't help but feel like Godzilla vs. Kong is a little undercooked. The same feeling I had with King of the Monsters, where iconic monsters like Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra are all coming together without their own movies between them. You know, why do you think the DCEU hasn't been able to compete with the MCU? Because of rushed development that hampers characterization and overall world building for all those characters and stories. It's why Whedon's cut of Justice League failed while Snyder's cut succeeded, but I'm getting off topic at this point. And in terms of finality, Godzilla vs. Kong provides a satisfactory ending to the Monsterverse, but one that could have had a bit more gravitas. You know, this was supposed to be the last movie in Legendary Pictures' Monsterverse because their deal with Toho expired last year, but a lot of things just go unexplained. Like, you can tell there was a rushed development just from watching the opening credits of the film. You know, where it showed the image cards of Godzilla and Kong as if this was a sports broadcast or something. It showed how Godzilla had defeated all these titans, like he's just been killing everyone. But why? They never say. The only thing I could think of is that these titans challenged him and his throne and he just, you know, silenced them, but we really don't know. This phoning it in approach basically gets rid of the titans revealed in the last movie and any sort of sequel potential, which really sucks, especially for the talented designers who made some of these creatures like the Behemoth, only to have them get killed off. Like, why spend all the time, money, and resources CGing in these creatures when they just get murked by Godzilla off screen? Honestly, what they should have done was have a sort of cold open to the film where we actually see Godzilla fighting and killing all these titans, maybe mistaking their bioacoustics for the signal he's been hearing from Mechagodzilla. And so it becomes Apex's plan for Godzilla to end all the titans before they launch Mecha-G and kill Godzilla themselves. This would have been a great callback to Godzilla Final Wars, where in a few short sequences, he basically annihilates all the monsters in the film. It would have been cool to see, and it'd provide better closure for the Titans, I think. Also, if it was up to me, I'd put Kong's human team with Godzilla's and had these characters interact with one another. Maybe have Madison Russell take an internship at Monarch courtesy of her father, which puts her in contact with Eileen Andrews and Gia. Madison could be like an older sister figure to Gia, but they could grow apart once she finds out that Team Kong have plans to work with the corrupt Apex Cybernetics on their expedition to the Hollow Earth. These characters can be at odd ends with each other now, thinking that their respective monsters should kill the other to restore balance, which is the big theme of many of these films since Godzilla 2014. I don't know, something along those lines, just to keep Madison's character relevant somehow. It was unfortunate to see her go from this courageous, I'll-do-it-myself sort of character to quippy, comedic fodder with her group. And I'm definitely not the only one who thinks this. From all the reviews and general audience reactions I've seen, everyone says the weakest parts of the movie are when Madison and her team are on screen. But despite all of this, despite the blatant rush development, missed potential, or, hit or miss human stories, Godzilla vs. Kong succeeds in being an entertaining and visually stunning monster brawl that put a big, goofy smile on my face. It's sad to think that the Monsterverse is done, but if the film's reception is any indication, they'd be stupid not to continue the franchise and expand on its lore even further. Like, they may have killed off all their titans, but there are plenty more to choose from. I mean, they can definitely go the alien route since Ghidorah was in the last movie, and they could introduce all kinds of, these Lovecraftian creatures that come from the cosmos, maybe expanding on the conspiracy/cultist themes that they built in this film, with monsters that come from space, like spiritual deities that threaten life on Earth. Maybe Kong and Godzilla could team up once again, and they could fight Gigan and Megalon, and they'll reenact the amazing dropkick sequence. I don't know, man. I could dream, right? I guess only time will tell. And for what it's worth, Godzilla vs. Kong is an excellent versus film, and is also one of the highest rated versus films in quite a while. Please watch and support it, and hopefully we can all get the Monsterverse rolling again, because they've barely scratched the surface here. Never have I thought that the US would release their own cinematic monster universe where they accurately and effectively portray these iconic creatures and culminate everything with this historic rematch. I've waited since 2015 when they first announced Godzilla vs. Kong, seriously, and I'm so glad it's here. And while it has its flaws, I appreciate that this film exists and that these monsters have regained their relevance as the pioneers of a whole film genre. It's a good time to be a fan. But all that being said, I hope you enjoyed my unscripted chatter, and let me know what you guys think of the film in the comments, and if you agree with my critiques or not. Stay tuned for my next video essay coming, it's coming, it's coming soon. I have no fucking idea, but I'll see you guys later. Long live the king.